Thank you. Good afternoon, students. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, good afternoon, Rajita. Good afternoon, all the students. Today. So today we are discussing on the topic of exemptions. Okay, very good, very good. A lot of people joined in today. Priya Mishra, Somya, Almaz, Rihana, Ramchandra, Vemuri, Asta Sethi. Good, good. Welcome all. So we have discussed the basics. We have discussed the place of supply. We have discussed what is supply, what is the place of supply. Now we will we know that what is to be taxed, right? But do you like to pay taxes? Or any businesses do you think will be willing to pay taxes generally? He would not, right? So he will say, no, I don't want to pay taxes. Give me some exemption or give me some relief, right? In income tax, you call it as relief. So here also in GST, there are a lot of people who will tell that, no, I don't want to pay taxes. You give me some relief. So for them, right, not based on their request, but the understanding the economical scenario, saying that some category of goods, some category of services, we cannot bring it to GST. Why? Because it will impact the common man and the industry will not grow. So we cannot levy GST on everything. That's why we will give you some exemptions. So that's why this exemption is a special chapter specifically on what all are the category of exemptions which we will get. That is what we will learn here. So this will be applicable from your exam perspective and even from a personal perspective, saying that, okay, if you find any of your relatives doing any of these businesses are doing any of the specified transactions, which we will discuss now, if they are doing something, then you can advise them saying that, see, this is an exemption. Why don't you claim it? Right. But before exemption, how do we understand that what will be the nature of taxation, right? So first we know supply. So we'll start from there itself, that when a supply is, when any transaction is happening, and if it is falling under the charging section of 7 and 9, then supply is chargeable to GST, correct? But we also know that in the definition of supply itself, there are some exclusions. What are those exclusions? They are called as non-taxable supplies, which is there is these items which is specifically removed from the definition of supply itself, right? That is those 5 petroleum products and alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So on these goods, the GST will not be applicable itself. And for this is outside the scope of supply itself. So scope से अलग हो गया, तो फिर do you think इसके लिए अलग से exemption notification चाहिए? I'll repeat it in English. Since we know that these 5 items are outside the scope of supply, right? It is outside the scope of definition of supply. Do you think for these 5 plus 1, 6 items, there has to be some exemption notification? No. Anybody giving any other view? No. Correct. So everybody is unanimously saying that. So for these 5 plus 1, 6 products, sir, there is no requirement of any exemption. Correct. Because these 5 products are already outside the scope of supply, so they will not be taxable at all. So exemption will be given to whom? For something which is taxable. And these products are outside the tax net. So on this, it is outside the scope of GST itself. So on this, there is no exemption because it is already out of the scope itself. Okay. So then we'll see the transaction will decide if it is supply Yes, it is supply. Is it chargeable to tax? Yes, it is chargeable to tax. Then we'll see whether it is falling under this 5 plus 1, 6 products. It is falling, no GST. Then we'll proceed further. We'll see that check if the goods or services are exempt from tax. So we'll go and then check whether there is any exemption for these goods or services. If it is exempted, then no tax, else tax will be payable. Then we will go and see the rate notification to find out what is the GST rate. So what have we done? We have gone on a step-by-step basis and analyzed what should be the process flow for going and charging, finding out the rate. So you should not directly go to the rate notification and find out the rate, because before rate notification you have to go to the exemption. There could be some exemption. So if there is any exemption, check if that exemption is available to you. If there is no exemption, then you go and identify the rate. Okay. So what is exempt? Exempt supply is defined under the law to mean that supply of any goods or services are both which attracts nil rate of tax or which is wholly exempt from tax, and it also includes non-taxable supply. Okay. So this definition is given not only from the perspective of understanding what is exemption, but also this will be very helpful from the understanding of the input tax credit. Okay. So here we will understand from a perspective of exemption. When we go to input tax credit, then we will understand this definition from the perspective there. Then you will have that clarity. Exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which attracts nil rate of tax or which is wholly exempt. So here itself the confusion starts. So what is nil rate of tax and what is wholly exempted? Exemption is exemption. तो exempt में nil rate क्या है और wholly exempt क्या है? तो जब हम step by step जाएंगे यहाँ पे and then we'll see that there is a exemption notification which exempts the goods or services, right? Then that is called as a exempted through second part, which is it is wholly exempt. Okay, so when a product or a service is exempted through a notification, where the notification says the following products will be exempted, that is called as wholly exempt. Then you go to the rate, and in the rate, if they mention the rate is 0 or they mention nil, that is called as nil rate of tax. Okay, so when it is wholly exempted, the specific exemption is there where it is completely exempt. And in the rate notification, when the rate is nil or 0, that is called as that is the first part, that is that goods or services which attracts nil rate of tax. So both are treated as exempt supply itself. The way how they give exemption can differ. One could be through a specific exemption notification and other could be through a rate. In the rate, they can mention 0. And it also includes non-taxable supply. This is that 5 petroleum products and alcoholic liquor for human consumption. That is also included under the definition of exempt supply. Clear? So there is a question of Ms. Priya. Exempt supply include both non-taxable supplies and zero-rated supply. Do you think zero-rated supplies will get included here? No. Correct. So zero-rated supplies is a special category of supply, but they will not be included under exempt supply. Okay. No, Priya, it will not be included in exempt supply. Exempt supply only means these 3 things. One is which is having a nil rate of exemption, which is wholly exempt and non-taxable supply. But zero rated are not under non-taxable supply. So zero rated is completely different. The zero rated is completely different because the ITC treatment of the zero rated supply is also different. Okay. So zero rated and nil rate of tax are different. Yes, they are different. I think, Priya, you have a lot of queries. Can you unmute if that's fine?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Priya.
Sir, I thought exempt supply includes zero-rated supplies because zero-rated supplies also have GST as 0%. So
Correct.
that's
So
where I got confused.
correct. But the difference is exemption will be given through a exemption notification and thing. That's the way how they give it. But the primary difference between a zero rated supply and nil rated supply is in a exempt supply, which is with a culmination of nil rated, wholly exempt, and non taxable. All of this, when you supply something, right? It could be, say, healthcare services. Okay, when you go to a doctor will not charge any GST to you. So when he
Yes, sir.
provides some service, it is a exempt service, but any purchases what he makes, okay, he cannot claim credit on it. Okay, because he's making a outward supply which is
Okay.
exempted, he cannot claim the benefit of the input tax credit. Okay, but for zero rated supply,
Okay.
when a person
So
is
can you give an example of?
uh, exempt supply, I've given you example, healthcare service, a doctor providing service. Zero rated supply, there are only two zero rated supplies. One is when you supply to a SEZ unit, and second is when you make any export.
Special economic zones.
So only two things are there under the zero rated supply.
Okay.
So if a chartered accountant provides any services to a client outside India, he will not charge GST, and a doctor also will not charge GST. But this chartered accountant who's doing this export of services, he can claim input tax credit.
So, sir, can you give an example for a nil rate of tax?
Correct. The doctor service, what I'm saying, okay, doctor service is an example of wholly exempt. For nil rate of tax, if you see under the GST tariff or GST rate
Yes.
schedule, there are some products. If not for services, there are some products which say that rate is zero. Okay, that is the example of nil rated supply.
Okay, got it.
So in zero rated, you can claim the ITC even if you're not charging any GST. That's a benefit which is given. That's why there's a special category which is called as zero rated. But in exempted, you cannot claim ITC. You have to reverse your ITC. But you said that if non-taxable are under GST purview, then why it is included under exempt supply? So there is no specific exemption notification given to them, but with the same intention of reversal of ITC, they have included this non-taxable supplies under the definition of exempt supply. Because in case of these exempt supplies or these 5 non-taxable supplies, you will not pay GST. If they do not include under the definition of exempt supply, you will be claiming ITC, right? That's why to get you devoid or not to give you that benefit of ITC, they have specifically included under the definition of exempt supply. If they have not paid GST, Deepika, your question is not clear. If they don't want to pay GST, so once it is exempted, then you don't have any option saying that no, I will still pay. That is not possible. Doctor services provided outside India still cannot claim ITC. Yes, you're right. So exemption, when they give a exemption through the exemption notification, right? Yes, all exempt services ITC will not be available. You're right. Can nil rated goods ITC be claimed? No. Even for nil rated goods, ITC cannot be claimed. Exemption could be various types of exemption in terms of the specific activity, saying that if you're doing healthcare, that's a specific activity, then it will not be taxable. Or it could be given on specific suppliers, like some charitable organizations. Charitable organizations, on the supplier itself, there is no GST. Specified recipient, saying that if you provide this to certain recipient, only then you will get it. or it could be on specified suppliers and specified recipients. So the exemption could be a combination of anything. Okay, we don't have to kind of identify, but we need to be aware that exemption could be various kinds. It's not necessary that only on the activity it will be exempted. It will be sometimes dependent on who is the supplier and who is the receiver also. Now, section 11, which is very important on exemption, it says that the central government or the state government may, on the basis of the recommendation of the council on taxable goods or services, give exemption. So, central government can give exemption on taxable goods or taxable services of any specified description if it is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest. The council has to recommend saying that we are okay to give exemption to this, and then it will give the exemption on the taxable goods or services. By way, how can they give the exemption? They can give through 11.1. So exemption is given under the definition is given under the section 11, and 11.1 says that they can give exemption through a notification, which is exempting it generally, which means it is a absolute and it is not optional, or it could be subject to some conditions. When it is absolute, saying that you will get an exemption and there are no conditions attached, then you have to claim it. There is no option for you. But if they say that it is subject to some conditions, okay, then it becomes optional because I am not able to fulfill that conditions. They will say, okay, I will give you exemption provided you don't claim the input tax credit or you claim limited credit. Okay, then it's a conditional thing, right? If the conditions are such that I should claim only limited credit, then I'll say, no, I don't want to avail that condition because I cannot fulfill that condition. So better I will pay the full tax. So when it is subject to such conditions, then it is optional. But if it is absolute, saying that no conditions attached, then it is absolute and then fully it will be taxable. From now, exemption could be two types. It could be exempt from whole tax or motor and GTA. Correct. Car and GTA. GTA, yes, GTA, it's subject to conditions. And yes, motor car by where there's a including cost of fuel. Correct. You are understood it correct, Asta. Now, this exemption, generally we see that they give whole tax, they don't give part of the tax, but the power is there with the government to give, saying that part of the tax is exempted. That also they can give. Now, the first part, what we understood is that the exemption can come through notification. Second, the 11.2 says that when they not able to give through notification, they can give through a special order. They can exempt under exceptional circumstances explicitly specified in such order for the whole tax. So when they give a notification, it has to go to the CBIC, they have to approve it and things like that. But the government can give it through a order itself. They can not wait for the notification. They have a power to give the exemption through an order, so that also they can exercise. But when they give it through order, there it cannot be like subject to some conditions. It has to be absolute and it will be always exempt for the whole tax. Okay, so that is 11.1, 11.2. Then that is where how they can give they can give the exemption either through notification or through order. Now, after they have given this notification or order, they feel that there is some correction they have to make. Now, generally, we have seen in the budget also, whenever any notification is issued, right? Suppose they have issued today. What will be the effective date of that? What will be the effective date of any notification? Yes, any guesses? mentioned in the notification. Retrospective effect, no. When it got assent by the president, correct. That is the act. The act will get the assent of the president. But notifications, if something is issued, it will generally be effective from that date itself. Right? That is called as prospective because today they issued. So from tonight, the effect of the notification will be there. So that is called as prospective. Okay. But when they give a exemption and then they realize there is some correction they have to make. So within 1 year, they can give another notification. And in that notification, they can say that this clarification will apply from the date of that original notification. Okay. So that, say, like an example, they have issued a notification for exempting healthcare services. Healthcare services, they have exempted from 1st January 2025. Now, on the June month, they realized that they have to add some clarification saying that not only healthcare, but healthcare to animals, veterinary care also is included there. Now, if they want to give that clarification in June, then what will happen for the transactions happen from January to June? That will become taxable. So that's why to avoid such issue, they can say that they can give a notification within 1 year from the date of original notification. Our original notification was issued on 1st January 25. So by 31st December 25, they can give this notification saying that this will mean clarificatory and it will have retrospective effect. Retrospective effect means effect of that notification will be from a date prior to the date of issuance of notification. So they can give a notification and they can say that the impact of this will be from the date of the original notification. Got it? So that is what 11.3 is saying, that wherever the central government or state government considers it necessary for the purpose of clarifying the scope of applicability, they can issue a clarification by notification by inserting an explanation, because it's not a new exemption, it's the earlier exemption. They are adding an explanation. When an explanation is added, then within 1 year, such clarification can have a retrospective effect. But they issue it after 1 year, what happens? It will not have retrospective effect, it will have prospective effect itself. Here it is retrospective effect, that is, it will be effective from the date of issue of earlier notification. Correct, Priya? It is at option of government to have it retrospective or it compulsory. Correct. Yes, it is at the discretion of the government. In the same way you have to learn, but not in the same language. You can express it in your own style and in your own language. No worries. Okay, so that is what section 11 is saying. Now, for your exam purposes, as we said that exemption could be exemption of goods or exemption of services. For your exam purposes, exemption of goods is not there. So exemption of goods is a big list, but luckily you don't have it. You have it in your finals. But exemption of services is very much there. And the relevant notification, please note down this notification number, which is very much relevant for you, is notification number called as notification number 12/2017, which means this notification is issued in 2017. Okay. If you have to write it completely, it is issued by central tax rate, because you have the rate notification, non-rate notification. If it is to do anything with the GST rate, then you will have within the brackets rate notifications. So it is 12/2017 central tax rate dated 28th June 2017. After this, every amendment, whatever they have made, that gets added. But the principal main notification is notification number 12/2017, central tax rate dated 28th June 2017. Priya, notification number 11. No, it is not 11. Where did you find notification number 11? Oh, in module they mentioned 11. Oh my God. Which page number? Because that was correct until the last edition. Why have they mentioned 11? 11 is the rate notification. Exemption is given through 12. So it is 12. That is for giving you the example of 1 year. That's why they have given a reference of that notification 11. Okay. So, but the original exemption is there in exemption number 12 bar 2017 itself. Don't see that. See page number 5.9. Okay. 5.9, if you see that notification number 12 bar 2017, central tax dated 28 June 2017 has exempted various services wholly from GST. So exemption notification is given through notification number 12. The rate, that is, what will be the rate chargeable for various services which is supplied, that is given in notification number 11. So don't get confused. The correct notification is notification number 12 itself. Priya, did you get it? Wholly exempt supplies will have a rate of tax, not necessary, may not have, but if they have, still this exemption will override the rate if it is given. Now, exemption, as we know, it could be absolute or conditional. If it is absolute, which means it is unconditional, and then it become mandatory and registered person has to follow it. Or it can be conditional. If it is conditional, it can be at the option of the registered person whether to avail or not the same. Okay. So exemption could be optional or mandatory. Okay, so we'll start with understanding each category wise what are the exemptions. So if I go through the study material, there are so many exemptions. Under each category of exemption, there are multiple heads. So what I've done here is for easy understanding, I have written down the notes and categorized the category wise exemption under one head. Saki, what will happen that if you go through this and if you have a basic understanding from what we have in the class, this will be helpful for you. The chart methods really help that when we have to do it, then it becomes very easy to revise also. ठीक है? So the activities of a charitable or religious activities which will be exempted will be available to the entity who is registered under section 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Okay, so any entity which is registered, which wants to claim exemption for its charitable activities. So a company does a lot of charitable activities. Now, it will do some charitable activities. Now, still, will it get exemption? It will not get exemption. So, say it is going to the poor people and giving some books. For that, it wanted money. It raised funds. Okay. So, that raising of funds, will it be exempted? Ramchandran's question is, before that, Somya, I will upload this chart, Somya. Once the classes are completed, at the end of the class, you will see that this is getting uploaded. But for your understanding, I can upload this. Ramchandran's question is, sir, if a state or union territory wants to exempt a service in the respective state, can it do so? No. So rate and exemption both go in parallel. So since CGST and SGST goes in parallel, so if they have to exempt in the state, they can't do it only in their state. It has to get exempted in the center also. Because then otherwise what will happen? Center will charge 6%, state will start 0. That will not be possible. That's why exemption should be both at the center and the state. Okay. So first is, now I didn't get any answer to my question. If a company is doing any charitable activity, will it get exemption? Asta is saying no, Anubhav is saying CSR. हाँ, CSR बोल दो आप. लेकिन वो उसके लिए funds collect कर रहा है. It is collecting funds from various people and then spending it. So may I saying yes, if it is registered under ITAC, ये तो ITAC में registered है. But everybody registered cannot claim it. They have to get registration under 12AA or AB. So many people have said no, which is the correct answer, because 12AA or 12AB will not be available to a private limited company. It will be available to a trust, a NGO, okay, or a charitable trust, or a Section 8 company. It will not be available to any company. So, an entity who will get registration under 12AA or AB, who will get it? A Section 8 company, a charitable trust, or a NGO. Only they can get it. So, if they are registered under 12AA or AB, that is the first condition. Then we'll see the second condition. Second condition is they should be doing a charitable activity relating to 1, 2, 3, 4. They should be doing, they should first be registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Second condition is they should be doing any of these charitable activities which is relating to public health. Now, public health also, what kind of public health is defined? So if you see the GST law, it is so very integrate or so very detailed, saying that they don't want to give exemption to everybody. Like our income tax, if you give any donation, okay, if you give any donation to 12AA, it is exempted. Now, what they use and things like that, that the donor need not bother about. But in GST, the GST has to be charged or no has to be decided by the trust. If they are doing this specific activities, just registration under 12AA or AB is not sufficient. They have to do some more activities. What they should do? They should be doing charitable activities which are relating to public health by way of what kind of public health? They should be doing care or counseling of whom? Of people who are terminally ill, who are severely or physically or mentally disabled. Okay. Of what? Of any disease which is in relation to HIV or AIDS infected or addicted to drugs or alcoholic addicts. Okay. Yes, can the entity be Section 8 company? Yes, it can be, Prem. Clear? So they should be doing public wealth by way of care or counseling of terminally ill, severely or physically disabled people with or any people who is infected with HIV, AIDS, drugs or alcoholic addicts. Then they will be exempted. Okay. Or any kind of second activity is advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga. It is registered at 12AA and they are doing advancement of religion, their own religion or spirituality or yoga also. Earlier yoga was not there, but very important that they are linking religion, spirituality and yoga. Okay. Saying that either you do open a yoga center or you do any spiritual center, religious place, mosque, church, all of these are religious places. When you are doing any activity for advancement of such religion, that is also exempted. Okay. Or advancement of educational programs or skill development. It's a having a noble cause and they are doing educational program or skill development relating to specific these students. Any educational institution run by a charitable trust is exempted. You can't say it. Only these specific activities will get exempted. Which are they? They are doing education or skill development for abandoned, orphaned or homeless children or any physically, mentally abused or traumatized person. मतलब जिसका दिमागी संतुलन ठीक नहीं है या फिर फिजिकली संतुलन ठीक नहीं है या उसके ऊपर ट्रॉमा हो गया है, उन लोगों का उन क्या कर रहे हैं? एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं और स्किल डेवलपमेंट कर रहे हैं. या फिर प्रिजनर्स. तो ये सब दीज कैटेगरी ऑफ पीपल आर देयर whom we जनरली वो डोंट फाइंड इन नॉर्मल स्कूलिंग और उनके लिए ये लोग स्पेशल स्कूल कर रहे हैं, राइट. एडवांस्ड अबेंडन स्टूडेंट्स, ऑर्फन स्टूडेंट या जिसके पास घर नहीं है, उन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए, उन बच्चों के लिए ये स्कूल चला रहे हैं. या फिर मेंटली ट्रॉमेटाइज पर्सन के लिए या फिर कैदियों के लिए या फिर पीपल हु आर मोर देन 65 years एंड दे आर स्टेइंग इन रूरल एरियाज. अगर वो अर्बन एरिया में करेंगे तो एग्जेम्पशन नहीं मिलेगा. रूरल एरियाज में 65 और अबव के लिए पढ़ाई करा रहे हैं या फिर स्किल डेवलपमेंट भी कर सकते हैं. 65 के ऊपर क्या पढ़ेंगे? सो इट नॉट ओनली सेज एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम्स, इट कुड बी एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम और इट कुड बी एनी स्किल डेवलपमेंट. ओके. Any of these things, if they are doing, then it will be exempted. ठीक है. Or the fourth one is they are doing any kind of preservation of environment, watershed, forests or wildlife. Okay, they're doing preservation of environment, forests, watersheds or wildlife. Agar if any of these activities is there, then it will be exempted. What is advancement? Advancement matlab सिखाई देना. Okay, they are doing something in terms of improving the skill sets of certain people. That is called as advancement. All expenses incurred by them will be exempted? Nahi. We are not talking about expenses. We are saying anything they do on which they receive money, उसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं कलेक्ट करना चाहिए. So when any activity of this region, of this thing they're doing, suppose they are doing a schooling for prisoners. Now they need funds they are getting as donations. Now, will that donation be exempted or taxable is the question. If they utilize their funds for, say, prisoners or persons who are above 65 years, any of these categories, if they're doing, then that donation will be exempted. Because it is not a blanket thing that all donations are exempted. No. Donations are anything which is serving the following purpose, only with that will be exempted. एग्जाम्पल ऑफ प्रिजर्वेशन, जैसे लेक है, लेक सूख रहा है, उसको वो प्रिजर्व कर रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे कचरा मत डालो, एंड दे आर डूइंग सम एक्टिविटीज, और पानी बचाने के लिए कुछ कर रहे हैं, उसे कहते हैं प्रिजर्वेशन. ओके. विल एजुकेशन बी गिवन टू पुअर पीपल काउंट? एजुकेशन गिवन स्पेसिफिकली टू अबैंडन्ड, ऑर्फन्ड और होमलेस चिल्ड्रन, जस्ट पुअर पीपल विल नॉट बी काउंटेड. ठीक है. लेकिन बंडी प्रीत, अंडरस्टैंड दैट एजुकेशन का भी एक अलग से एग्जेम्पशन है, उसमें यू विल गेट कवर्ड, नॉट अंडर दिस. सो टू गिव एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज, if you are doing any educational services, in educational services we'll see that there it is exempt. Okay, but not under this category. What is contained in 12AA or 12B? I mean, would separate entities that are registered under that section from other entities doing same? Very complicated question. If you don't mind, Ramchandra, can you unmute and ask if that's possible? Yes. Okay, you can type because I think your mic, we are not able to listen. Education to below 65 years. Yes, agar if they are providing education to any person below 65 years and who are not under this or abandoned, orphaned or prisoners, then it will be taxable. But any education provided which is recognized by law, जब हम education में पढ़ेंगे सोम्या तब आपको पता चलेगा that education services provided to specified thing जहाँ पे आपको qualification दे रहे हो, then that will be exempted. लेकिन 65 years के नीचे वालों को if you are giving something, it will not be through any kind of a board, right? Then that will become taxable. Clear? The first part, charitable activities relating to public health, advancement of religion, advancement of education, and preservation of environment, watershed, forests, and wildlife. Clear? Next, related to charitable activities, you will see that in your material it is given in multiple pages. I have summarized this for you over here. If they are running any old age home, who an entity was registered under 12AA, if they are running an old age home, and for whom? For residents who are more than 60 years. तो यहाँ पे कितना था? 65 years. For advancement, it is 65 years, but running old age home, there 60 years is sufficient. Okay, so you don't get confused. Be clear that old age home 60 years. If it is for advancement of education, वहाँ पे 65 years है. Here it could be any area. There it is specifically rural area itself. If they are providing any old age home to residents above 65 years and the consideration is up to 25,000 rupees per month per person, and this 25,000 is towards what? It's towards boarding, lodging or maintenance, then it will be exempted. Up to 25,000 है तो exemption मिलेगा, above 25,000 है तो exemption नहीं मिलेगा. Okay. Note, very important note is this, that if any old age home is run by central government or state government, that is also exempted. Okay. So any old age home run by the central government or state government, वहाँ पे कुछ limit का बंदोबस्त नहीं है. There is no restriction on limit. There, any amount you give, and if it is run by government, it will be exempted. I want to ask, what is the difference between charitable organization not registered under 12A or AB doing the charitable activities listed here from the organization who are registered under those sections? Why the exemption is provided to entities specifically registered under those sections? See, very good question. That I am also doing a charitable activity. The other person is also doing a charitable activity. I am not registered under 12AA, but he is registered under 12AA. So why exemption is given only to that person who is taken registration on 12AA? See, the government realized that giving a exemption to anybody, the income tax will evaluate it. So if you want to get a 12AA or AB certificate, you should once do the process and understand it is so very cumbersome. Uploading online, everything is fine. You'll give the documents online, that's fine. But to get the approval, they will have to ensure that you are doing actually a charitable activity. So since their income tax authorities at the time of giving this exemption itself are giving this benefit to the concerned assessee, he will check everything, right? And then they have to do proper reporting, spending that 85%. So much conditions are there. That's the reason only to such entities who are regulated. Regulated by whom? Regulated by the income tax authorities. And they're given 12AA or AB and every year they're filing it, right? Only to such entities they will give this exemption. So, जो non इसमें है उनको exemption नहीं मिलेगा. So your consideration of 25,000, is it donation? No. So your 25,000 is not donation because a person who's running an old age home, he will not ask for donation. He'll say, this is my monthly rent. कि 20,000 आपको देना पड़ेगा. Then that person who is at your home, whose age of 60 years and above, he can come and stay here. So that is 25,000 rupees per month per person. And it is not in terms of donation. It is in terms of receipt of money towards this itself. That you will tell that we are running a old age home and you have to pay us monthly rent. Clear? Next. So, but exemption is for donation with quid pro quo. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Just hold on a minute. Then we'll come and understand when quid pro quo will apply, when it will not apply. Next is when you are renting a presence of a religious place which is meant for general public, which means you have a temple complex. You have a temple complex, इतना बड़ा complex है कि वहां पे आप छोटी छोटी दुकान भी दे सकते हैं, right? So if you are renting a presence of religious place which is meant for general public, and if the room rent in that premise, if you're giving some rent room, and the room rent is up to 999. Very easy to understand here because the limits here are all 999 or 49s. Room rent अगर दे रहे हो किसी को and you're charging only 999 per day, then it is exempted. If you charge 1,100, then that fully it will be taxable because the limit is कि आपके दर्शनार्थी, your devotees are coming, for them you are giving it, then, okay, then if you're charging nominal rent, then we will also not trouble you. We'll give you this exemption. Okay, so we are in this part. So religious place, if it is meant for general public, within the presence of the religious place, if the room rent is up to 999, अगर 1,000 कर दिया तो taxable होगा. That's why specifically वहां पे लिखा है 1,000 and above. To not to get confused, I specifically mentioned 999 कि room rent up to 999 will be exempted. If they charge 1,000, only it will become taxable. Next is in terms of any premises or Kalyan Mandapam. What is Kalyan Mandapam? Marriage hall. So any premises if they're giving or any marriage hall they're giving and they're getting rent up to 9,999, then it will be exempted. Or if they're giving any shop for rent and the shop is paying rent of monthly 999, then it will be exempted, otherwise it will become taxable. Correct, Asa? For 1,000 it will be fully taxable. Thank you, Priyanshi. This is very crisp and easy. Yes, this will be uploaded on the portal. Tax rate will be not relevant for your exam because GST rate you don't have to understand, but for your understanding now, the GST rate will be 18%. Okay. Next, related to this itself, that earlier any hostel accommodation by any trust was also exempted, saying that any room anybody provides, if the rent is 999, then it will be exempted, but that is also gone away with. Okay. So that's why I've striked it off, saying that earlier, if they had any hostel accommodation, then up to 999 rupees per day was exempted, but now that is gone. That is no more available. That's why I scratched you. So you will not only see relevant, what is not relevant also. ताकि अगर आपको क्वेश्चन में कुछ गूगली क्वेश्चन आ गया, तो then you can tell that hostel accommodation provided by a trust will be taxable. This exemption is gone away with. Then next exemption is Pundit services. Any Pundit, this is to an entity which is non-12AA, because Pundit to 12AA registration nahi lega, but he is to providing any religious ceremony. So any Pundit services which is providing religious ceremony, that is also exempted. Which means what? It could be a Pundit, it could be a priest, it could be any religion, same any person who is providing any religious ceremony, conducting religious ceremony, his services will be exempted. 1,000. सौम्या, एक्ट में तो 1,000 ही लिखा है. एक्ट में लिखा है कि 1,000 होगा तब टैक्सेबल होगा, लेकिन हम याद कैसे करेंगे? That's why I have mentioned one number bound कि यहां तक exempted है, उसके ऊपर 1 रुपया हो गया तो टैक्सेबल लग जाएगा. One who pays the rent, yes. So the trust or charitable organization is there. They're giving rent. They are giving room. Now you are ready to pay rent, correct? You have gone to Tirupati and Tirupati temple, they have said, take this room. It is 1,200 rupees. Who is paying the rent? The Darshanarthi. The people who have come, they will pay. Now from that, in there only they'll mention GST at 18% and they will collect from the Darshanarthi, and this collection, what they will do, this Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam Trust will pay it to the government. Okay. Clear? Yes, Varsha, in our syllabus, we don't have the rates. Okay. Any other question? Oh, there are some questions. Amount comes in दान पेटी, that will be exempted because there is no quid pro quo, right? कि वहां पे आप किसी को कुछ दे नहीं रहे हो, वो अपने मन से दे रहा है, that will be exempted. If rent is up to exemption, no tax is collected. Correct. So this exemption beneficial to one who pays the rent, right? Correct. I think if you can unmute yourself and ask your query, that will be helpful, Mrs. P.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. My doubt was that in the case of rent, this exemption will be beneficial for the one who pays the rent, right? Not the charitable organization.
Correct. Because charitable organization, even if they have to pay, they will collect from the person and pay to the government. So it will not be beneficial to them. It will be beneficial to the person who is paying the rent. You are right.
But in the first case, it will be beneficial for the organization when they are providing services.
Even in that case, because if they have to pay anything, they can collect from the donor.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Correct, Soumya. If the amount is below 999 or exactly 999, still TTD will not be liable to GST. What is presence? मतलब सराउंडिंग. जब टेम्पल है, टेम्पल के सराउंडिंग या विद इन द 4 बॉर्डर्स या जो बाउंड्री है, उसे कहते हैं प्रेसेंस, जो मंदिर के पास है. ऐसा नहीं कि मंदिर यहाँ पे है, अब 5 किलोमीटर दूर एक हॉल लोगे और उसमें जो भी दर्शनार्थी आएंगे उसे भी आप एग्जेम्पशन कर दोगे. नहीं, जो भी मंदिर है, मंदिर के बगल वाला तक है, सेइंग दैट सेम कॉम्पाउंड बट इन अ डिफरेंट प्रोमाइसेस, जस्ट बगल वाला है, टू दैट एक्सटेंट इट बी कॉल्ड एज प्रेसेंस. मतलब in and around the religious place. That is called as presence. Next क्या exemption है? This services by a rehabilitational professional. Okay, services by a what will be the GST rate if amount is below the limit? If the amount is below the limit, then it is exempted ना बाबा. जब exempted होगा तो GST rate का क्या मतलब है? Where is this old age home 25,000 वाला point in book? It is mentioned ma. थोड़ा आप देख लीजिए, then you will get it. I'll let you know where it is. Services by rehabilitational professionals. That is, there are rehabilitation centers, and these centers are run by a entity who is registered by 12AA. Now, इसके लिए आपको rehabilitation professionals को बुलाना पड़ेगा. Now, these rehabilitation professionals will provide services to this 12AA entity, and they have to pay him the charges for the professional fees. Now, these rehabilitation professionals or therapy professionals are doing counseling. Their services is also exempted. तो यहाँ पे जो भी चार्ट में लिखा है, these services are exempted. तो these rehabilitation professionals who are providing any services to a entity who is registered under 12AA, or they can provide to a medical institution, or that is a hospital, or an educational institution, or a rehabilitation center established by the central government. Any rehabilitation professionals who providing services to anybody will be exempted. Clear? So rehabilitation professionals providing services to 12AA, providing to the government, providing to the hospital, providing to an educational institution, all of that will be exempted. Clear? Then training or coaching. When a charitable trust provides training or coaching in recreational activities relating to what? Only relating to sports. So if they are providing any recreational activities relating to sports, it is exempted. Now, आप बोलोगे नहीं, training or activity is given in recreational activities related to arts and culture. That is also exempted by whom? By any person, not necessarily charitable trust. लेकिन charitable trust के लिए only sports and arts and cultures, but for non-12AA entity, only arts and culture. Clear? Exemption for the rehabilitation expert. Correct. Exemption for the rehabilitation expert. हॉस्टल अकोमोडेशन इज फुल्ली एग्जेम्प्ट. वो अब जब हॉस्टल अकोमोडेशन आएंगे तब पढ़ेंगे. यहाँ पे हटा दिया गया है बिकॉज यू हैव अ न्यू एग्जेम्पशन फॉर द हॉस्टल अकोमोडेशन. देयर द लिमिट एंड द पीरियड बोथ वी हैव टू कंसिडर. ठीक है. So that is all in terms of the exemption for a charitable organization. Last part, this religious ceremony. Religious or pilgrimage service by KMVNL and Hajj Committee. We have Zoom. Any religious pilgrimage services conducted by Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited, Uttarakhand, mein, where they are doing any Kailash Mansarovar Yatra or any services pilgrimage by the Hajj committee for traveling to Mecca. So इनके services will be exempted. So जो travel के लिए you pay him, right? Educate वहाँ पे वो health care भी देंगे, stay भी देंगे, सब कुछ देंगे. Everything will be exempted if only these two committees का सर्विस आप ले रहे हो. लोकल में जो भी सर्विस रहे हो उसका नहीं मिलेगा. स्पेसिफिकली दे आर what is empaneled, that Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited and Hajj Committee, only their services are exempted. Okay? So any specific points which has to be included, I'll highlight that. First is exemption is in terms of notification number 12 or 2012, services by an entity registered under 12AA, services by a way of religious pilgrimage facilitated by the government under bilateral arrangement of Hajj Committee of India or State Hajj Committee or Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited, services by way of training or coaching in recreational activities related to art or culture or sports, because art and culture is for everybody and sports specifically is for 12AA entity. मतलब arts and cultures तो 12AA को भी मिलेगा क्योंकि वो सबको मिल रहा है. Then rural area, that 65 years criteria, public health by way of care or counseling of terminally ill persons affected with HIV or AIDS, persons addicted to a dependence forming substance such as narcotics or drugs, public awareness, advancement of religion, spirituality or yoga, advancement of educational program, abandoned children, physically and mentally abused children, prisoners of the age of 65 years residing in rural area. Now, what is rural area? How do you decide? You will have to go and see their land records. Land records may, if they are treated as village, then it is a rural area. If it's under the jurisdiction of municipal committee, panchayat, municipal corporation, then it is not a rural area. Okay. And preservation of environment, including watershed. Only for Kailash, Mansarovar and Mecca, correct, exempted hai. Yes, you're right. This is what we had discussed. यहाँ पे 1,000 rupees ही है. For our understanding, we have kept it as 999. Services provided by charitable trust or specified services exempted, but services provided to charitable trust. Very important. So you are a kind of, say, in a temple, you see that mostly there are security services, right? A lot of devotees are coming in and you need to maintain them. So you are engaging a security service. Now, security has provided the service. They are, of course, under the contract. Now they are to raise a bill. Now, when they raise a bill, this charitable institution is saying that, no, we are exempted under GST. So your bill amount is there, no? On that, you should not charge any GST. Is that correct or no? No. Why? Why should they charge GST? Isn't it exempted? It is not in 12AA. It is in 12AA. The charitable trust is in 12AA only, Bhumi. It is on services by charitable trust. Some activities are exempted. No, some activities. So whatever exemption we have read, that is services provided by a charitable or religious institution. But services provided to charitable or religious institution is taxable. Okay. So the receiver, the person who's providing services to a charitable entity, they have to charge because they don't have any exemption. So exemption has to be looked from the perspective of the service provider. In this case, the charitable organization or religious organization, their services are exempted, but when they receive services from others, that will not be exempted, that will be taxable. Okay. That is first part. Second, renting of presence means that any renting which they are providing for general public, only that will be exempted, which means if they are giving shop specifically for their own thing, then that will become taxable. Then activities other than above will be considered as taxable irrespective of the manner in which it is collected. So just by the name that it is donation, that will not be fully exempted. बस आपने डोनेशन देख लिया तो फिर आप किसी चीज के लिए भी आप क्या करो, you have to pay some consideration, but instead of paying consideration, you'll call it as donation. So the terminology does not matter in GST. What is the nature of the transaction? That is very important. If you're providing any taxable service and getting collected donation, still that donation can get taxable. Okay, because the nature of transaction, what you're doing is not a charitable organization. Like they're giving donation and saying that you have to do marketing for us, you have to do promotional activity saying that we have donated it, you have to fulfill certain conditions. Every month our advertisement should come. So then that question comes in saying that am I receiving donation with some obligation to do it? Then it is not a donation, because as somebody pointed out that it is not a, if there is no any quid pro quo, then it is a pure donation. But if there is any quid pro quo, matlab, I am giving you something, but you have to return something to me back directly or indirectly. Okay. In such case, it is a quid pro quo. Then it is not a pure donation. It will be taxable. If it is a pure donation where there is no expectation, there is no return which is expected, then there is no tax. Suppose you are seeing that in a lot of places, at least in the place of Karnataka, I've seen that there are vehicles which are being donated by, say, Infosys. And Infosys will give the donation and they'll tell, I don't need any return. But as a matter of gratitude, they'll write donated by Infosys. So at least for recognition they're giving. मतलब इसका marketing नहीं कर रहे, ऐसे recognition के लिए डाल रहे. Then it is a pure donation, not taxable. But if they're giving the vehicle and they're saying you have to do something, so that will also become taxable. Quid pro quo means something in return as consideration. Correct. So if, for example, Mukesh Ambani has donated to an institution, then such donation is exempt. But if Reliance Industries donates, then it is taxable. Then still it is exempted itself, because it could be whoever donates it. If it is without any quid pro quo, then it is exempted itself. Good question, Ramchandra. ठीक है? Any questions? We can take a break here because first exemption था तो थोड़ा detail में गए. Next exemption we'll run it fast because we have to complete the exemption in 2 classes. Let's try to finish it off. Okay. We'll take a break for around 8 minutes. So we'll catch up at 3:50. So there are some questions on quid pro quo. Quid pro quo means something in return as consideration. Yes. So donation with quid pro quo will be exempt only in above cases. No. Any donation with quid pro quo will always be taxable. Donation without quid pro quo, that is when you donate something and you don't expect something in return, only then it will be exempted. Confused within the four terms: nil rated, zero rated, exempt, non-taxable, right? With respect to ITC. Okay. Firstly, in terms of categorization, Anubhav, nil rated, exempted, and non-taxable, all of this is categorized as exempt. But zero rated is a separate category. So first we'll understand the exemption. So if it is exempted, you don't have to pay GST. So when you don't have to pay GST, government is saying that when you're not paying GST, your ITC also we will not give you, reverse your ITC. So if you're selling goods worth 1 lakh rupees, which is exempted, and you're selling goods which is taxable worth 2 lakh rupees, you are into both business of exempted goods and taxable goods. 1 lakh exempted है, 2 lakh taxable है. और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट को आपने हायर किया ऑडिट करने के लिए. सो व्हेन यू हायर अ ऑडिटर, उसका फीस है 50,000 रुपीज. सो 50,000 का आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा? अगर आप एग्जेम्प्ट प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ 1 लाख ऑफ गुड्स, तो फिर आपको 50,000 जो जीएसटी वैल्यू है उसका क्रेडिट कितना मिलेगा? 2/3. बिकॉज 2 लाख रुपीज का आपने टैक्सेबल किया, उतने तक का आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा, लेकिन 1/3 का आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. दैट इज विथ रेस्पेक्ट टू एग्जेम्प्ट. लेकिन सेम थिंग अगर आप जीरो रेटर करते हो, आप 1 लाख रुपीज एक्सपोर्ट करते हो, 2 लाख रुपीज टैक्सेबल करते हो, तो आपको आईटीसी रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा? नहीं करना पड़ेगा. दैट इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ द जीरो रेटेड की आपको टैक्स तो पे नहीं करना है, लेकिन आपको इनपुट भी रिवर्स नहीं करना है. That is the distinction between exempt and zero rated. Are you clear now? Zero rated example, export of goods. A software, Infosys providing software services to Capgemini US is an example of zero rated supply. Zero rated में दो ही कैटेगरी है. Zero rated में दो ही कैटेगरी है. One is export and one is supply to SEZ. What is third? आस्था सिटी 2 लाख रुपीस था और टोटल टैक्सेबल वैल्यू कितना था? 1 + 2. सो टोटल 3 हो गया. तो प्रोपोर्शनेट कितना बनता है? 2/3. यस. अगर जीरो रेटेड है देन इट इज अ बेनिफिट टू द सप्लायर, क्योंकि एक्सपोर्ट होगा तो मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल नीड एक्सपोर्ट, मोस्ट ऑफ द कंट्रीज नीड एक्सपोर्ट. एक्सपोर्ट करोगे तो फॉरेन करेंसी बढ़ेगा, राइट? बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट्स कम हो जाएगा इंडिया का. सो सप्लाई टू SEZ and export is good for the supplier and for the country. SEZ भी है ना जीरो रेटेड में? यस, हाँ अनुभव. Export and SEZ is called as zero rated, is what we had discussed. 50,000 is the total input, but we'll get only 2/3. Yes, very correct. Just give me one more. हाउ टू रिवर्स आईटीसी, आस्था कुछ तो रखो आईटीसी चैप्टर के लिए, तब हम सब कुछ सिखा देंगे, पूरा उसका इधर सिखाएंगे तो फिर आईटीसी में क्या सीखेंगे? Donation given to trust under 12A with consideration is exempt or not? What do you mean by with consideration? Donation itself is a consideration. Whatever SEZ unit becomes a normal business unit. How can SEZ become a normal unit? So it will become a normal unit. So it will not be treated no more as a SEZ. Exemption would be available only to the supplier of services. Yes, mostly it is to the supplier of service itself. Because supplier only has to pay taxes to the government, so it will be to the supplier. Or agar it is payable by the recipient, then that will be exempted still. If a service is exempted, then if it is liable to reverse charge, then reverse charge is also exempted. Okay? So now let's quickly move to the next category of services, which is agriculture services. Okay. Agricultural services is okay. Agricultural services जैसे हेल्थ केयर इंपॉर्टेंट है, जैसे एजुकेशन इंपॉर्टेंट है, वैसे एग्रीकल्चर इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज इंडियाज जीडीपी कम्स फ्रॉम एग्रीकल्चर एंड एग्रीकल्चर इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर एनीबडी. दैट्स वे एग्रीकल्चर सर्विसेज आर ऑल्सो exempted. ठीक है. Now, how is this agriculture service exempted? You have to first understand the basic, that agriculture is a basic requirement. So any agriculture produce are exempted. ठीक है. जो भी खेत से उगता है डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम द एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड, they are all exempted. They are all called as agriculture produce. Correct? So agriculture produce is exempted. Correct? Now, from a registration, you have to understand the concept of registration also. Saying section 23, which is a provision for registration, which you will learn. But for now, you understand that section 23 says that agriculturist is not required to take registration. क्योंकि उसका पूरा supply जो है, it is exempted. To the extent of the produce of cultivation, he is not required to pay GST. So agricultural produce are exempted. So agriculturist who does only cultivation, he is not required to take registration. But if he does something else, like if he gives away his lot to a factory and he collects, that will be taxable. So then he has to take registration. A pure agriculturist who is doing only agriculture and registration not required. Now, in terms of goods, whatever supply of goods he does, okay, that will be exempted. Now, services, what all services will be exempted? Services like renting of the vacant land. उसके पास land है, वो agriculturist के लिए use नहीं कर रहा है, but he is giving it to somebody. Now, that land for agricultural purpose के लिए जो है, that will be exempted. Now, उस land में अगर छोटा सा घर है, छोटा सा shed है, still it will be exempted. That's the meaning of with or without structure will be exempted. Then, renting of vacant land, renting of agro machinery. Renting of agricultural machinery is also exempted. ठीक है. सो रेंटिंग ऑफ लैंड, रेंटिंग ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर मशीनरी, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर अगर जीएसटी चढ़ गया तो फिर बायर के लिए एक्स्ट्रा जीएसटी का बर्डन हो जाएगा. दैट्स वे it is exempted. Renting of vacant land and renting of agriculture machinery are exempted. ठीक है. Next, what is the pure agricultural activities which gets exempted? That is services. What we are talking is services relating to cultivation of plants or rearing of life forms of vehicles, life form of animals, vehicles बोल दिया. Services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of life forms of animals for food, fiber, fuel raw materials is all exempted. Okay, all of that is exempted. ठीक है, सो विच मीन्स व्हाट, एग्रीकल्चर का मतलब सिर्फ एग्रीकल्चर नहीं होता है. ठीक है, सिर्फ खेती एग्रीकल्चर नहीं है. प्लांट्स और लाइफ एनिमल्स, जो ऑफकोर्स डोमेस्टिक एनिमल्स ही रहेंगे, लाइफ फॉर्म ऑफ एनिमल्स एक्सेप्ट हॉर्सेस, क्योंकि हॉर्सेस जो है सिर्फ घुड़सवारी के लिए है या फिर एंटरटेनमेंट पर्पस के लिए है, तो फिर घुड़सवारी इज ऑल टैक्सेबल. हॉर्सेस को आप रेयर करोगे और उस पर कुछ भी एक्टिविटी करोगे, दैट विल बी taxable. Other than horses, all other animals will be exempted. Rearing of sheep, fishes, all of that will be exempted. But sir, for farmer, this is not good, right? He can't claim ITC, but he's not liable to any GST also, no? So for him, ITC will be very less because whatever raw materials he will take seeds only. All that will be exempted anyways. So there'll be very less impact of GST on him. Horticulture, yes, that is also exempted. So near my home, there is a man who has 1,000 sheep. How he know how to pay tax and where to pay? He is exempted. That's way, Dhanush, because rearing of life form of animal is exempted. So you can go and give him a good news saying that, boss, don't worry. You have 1,000 sheep or 2,000 sheep. All of that is exempted. Okay? That is on services. Now, in agriculture field, what all operations are exempted? Agriculture operations relating to cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, testing. जो agriculture field में करते हैं वो सब exempted है. Cultivating करते हैं, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, testing is exempted. Supply of farm labor. आपके पास 5-6 लोग हैं, दूसरे फार्मर को चाहिए, उसको आपने लेबर दे दिया, that is also exempted. So directly, indirectly, जो भी आप करते हो relating to growing of plants, growing of any food items, labor देते हो, आप ये भी करते हो that agro machine बेचते हो, rent पे देते हो, all of that is exempted. Or you carry out any process which is carried out at agriculture farm, that is cutting, harvesting, sorting, grading. मैं फार्मर हूँ, उगा दिया है, लेकिन एक और दूसरे वाले को, खेत बाजू वाले को दे दिया, वो चुपके बैठा है, उसको मैंने दे दिया कि इसका आप सॉर्टिंग करो, बड़ा छोटा आइडेंटिफाई करो, क्योंकि मुझे मार्केट में बेचना है. दैट इज ऑल्सो एग्जेम्प्टेड. सो एनी प्रोसेस कैरिड आउट एट एग्रीकल्चर फार्म, प्रोसेस का मतलब कि किसी दूसरे को देके करवा दिया है, दैट इज ऑल्सो एग्जेम्प्टेड. विच डज नॉट ऑल्टर द एसेंशियल कैरेक्टर. दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, इसको आप नोट कर दीजिए. विच डज नॉट ऑल्टर द essential characteristics but makes it marketable for the primary market. This will be exempted. That is, which does not alter the essential character and makes it marketable at what level? At the primary market. तो primary market, secondary market क्या है? जो market पे जाके आपको आपकी खेती बाड़ी बेचनी है, that is primary market. राइट, नॉट टू रिटेल कस्टमर. जहां पे आपको पैकेजिंग, बेसिक पैकेजिंग करना पड़ता है, उसे कहते हैं प्राइमरी मार्केट. जैसे आपने उगा दिया है टमाटर, टमाटर को आप हाथ में जाके नहीं बेच सकते हो, एटलीस्ट बोरी में डाल के बेचोगे. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज यू आर मेकिंग द प्रोडक्ट मार्केटेबल फॉर द प्राइमरी मार्केट. एटलीस्ट बोरी में तो एटलीस्ट रहना चाहिए. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज प्राइमरी मार्केट. जैसे गेहूं उगाते हैं, गेहूं को आप जो सॉर्टिंग ऊपर वाला छिलका होता है उससे नहीं निकाल के ऐसे ही देते हो, दैट इज प्राइमरी मार्केट. अगर निकाल दिया देन दैट्स अ सेकेंडरी मार्केट. ठीक है, सो एनी एक्टिविटी विच इज क्रिएटेड, विच इज डन, देन इट इज अ प्राइमरी मार्केट. ठीक है, so you understood primary market, second market, because all agricultural operations and processes to the agricultural primary market is exempted. Primary market के बाहर it is secondary market. We will also try to see a video so that उसमें आपको clarification आ जाएगा कि primary market क्या है, secondary market क्या है. which does not allow, which statement, which does not alter, the essential character. Sabzi mandi will be primary market. Sabzi mandi can be primary market, yes, because वहां पे जो भी ग्रो किए हैं वो डायरेक्टली लेके आते हैं, दैट इज प्राइमरी मार्केट. ठीक है. So this agriculture operations activities, then warehousing is exempted, कि आप गुड्स कहीं रख रहे हो वेयर हाउसिंग में और फिर वहां से उसको प्राइमरी मार्केट में लेके जाओगे, दैट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. बट पहले क्या था, वेयर हाउसिंग इन अ फ्यूमिगेशन, मतलब जो धुआं होता था, धुआं डालते थे, सेइंग दैट rodents and pesticides and germs should not come and infect your crops. तो इसलिए वेयर हाउस में रखे, अगर ज्यादा दिन रखते थे उसको फ्यूमिगेशन करते थे. वो फ्यूमिगेशन पहले एग्जेम्प्टेड था, लेकिन उसको अभी हटा दिया गया है. ठीक है. तो फ्यूमिगेशन इन अ वेयर हाउस इज नो मोर एग्जेम्प्टेड. फ्यूमिगेशन इन अ वेयर हाउस इज टैक्सेबल. तो अगर आपको क्वेश्चन में आएगा कि फ्यूमिगेशन सर्विसेज, you have to tell it is taxable. That's why I have specifically mentioned here. Fumigation in a warehouse is taxable. Why horses are specifically excluded? I've explained, Soumya. So what does that statement mean? वो आपको आ गया. Sir, can you give example of not altering essential character? Yeah. So what is essential character? I will take you an example of rice. Okay. When a paddy is growing, okay, it has some husk with it. So that is a primary produce. And when you sell that paddy with the husk, it is a primary market. Now, if you remove it, it means it is no more a paddy, it is getting converted into rice, right? So it is called as a secondary market produce. So rice also, you think that it's a staple food, but still if it is a secondary market product, because primary market ka product hai paddy, secondary is the rice. Okay. What is fumigation? Again, Dhanush and Priya, फ्यूमिगेशन वो है जहां पे आप धुआं छिड़कते हो. ठीक है. उसे कहते हैं फ्यूमिगेशन प्रोसेस. ताकि जहां पे यू आर स्टोरिंग योर फूड ग्रेन्स, इट शुड नॉट गेट डैमेज. द rodents, the rats should not come. That's why you spread out a fumigation gas. Okay. That is called as fumigation. Warehousing of what? Warehousing of agriculture produce is exempted, and warehousing of minor forest produce also is exempted. The warehousing of minor forest produce, that is tamarind, bamboo, etc., that is also exempted, because they can be actually secondary market, but उनके लिए specifically exemption दिया गया है. And so that statement means crops should be in primary stage for selling in primary markets, then it will be exempted. Correct. Rice is taxable. Yes, rice is taxable. लेकिन there is an exemption. Otherwise, it's a secondary product. लेकिन rice के लिए अलग से exemption दे दिया गया. That's why it is exempt. Why is it taxable? It is not changing the essential character. नहीं, characteristic change हो रहा है. The characteristic 100% change हो रहा है. That paddy से rice हो रहा है. लेकिन paddy को सिर्फ paddy रख सकते हैं. So there is a change in characteristics. That's why it's a secondary product. जो आप प्राइमरी मार्केट में मिलता है, अपने सब्जी मंडी में राइस नहीं मिलते. अपने सब्जी मंडी में सब्जियां मिलती है, राइस को आपको पूरा पैकिंग किया हुआ बोरी में मिलता है. करेक्ट. वो छोटी बोरी होती है. जो राइस बनाते हैं, राइस उगाते हैं, वो बड़ी बड़ी बोरी में डाल के बेचते हैं, और उसका हस्क नहीं निकलता है। हस्क निकालने के लिए उसको मिल्स में जाना पड़ता है। अगर मिल में चला गया तो फिर वहां पे प्रोसेस होगा। सो दैट्स वे दैट इज अ सेकेंडरी प्रोडक्ट। वेयर हाउसिंग ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस, राइस इज अ सेकेंडरी प्रोडक्ट, लेकिन फिर भी राइस को स्पेसिफिक इंक्लूड किया है क्योंकि खाना राइस इज अ स्टेपल फूड इन मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टेट्स। दैट्स वे राइस के लिए भी एग्जेम्पशन दे दिया गया कि इफ यू आर वेयर हाउसिंग दैट राइस, स्टिल इट विल बी एग्जेम्प्टेड। देन वेयर हाउसिंग ऑफ cereals, pulses, fruits, and vegetables. Only four things. Cereals, pulses, fruits, and vegetables ka warehousing will be exempted. Earlier, exemption was also available for nuts. Okay, nuts matlab all this badam, pista, those nuts, spices, copra, sugarcane, jaggery, indigo, tobacco, ये सब था, उन सबको हटा दिया गया. Now, what is exempted? Exempted is only warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Not even nuts. Nuts is also taxable. Clear? Then मार्केट के सर्विसेज जो है, जो प्राइमरी मार्केट में बेचने हैं, और एपीएमसी इज सेइंग दैट आपको जितना बेचने, आप जितना केजी बेचोगे उसका 10 रुपीज यू टू पे मी पर केजी, और 1 रुपी यू टू पे मी पर केजी। क्योंकि एपीएमसी में, एपीएमसी यार्ड मींस एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस मार्केटिंग कमेटी। हर स्टेट में, हर जिले में जो भी फार्मर्स होते हैं उनकी एक कमेटी होती है, एंड दे विल कम टू दैट प्लेस एंड सेल इट। क्योंकि एक मार्केट होना चाहिए, करेक्ट? सो प्राइमरी प्रोड्यूस विच इज बीन यूज्ड, और उस मार्केट में जो भी चार्जेस कलेक्ट होते हैं, दैट इज ऑल एग्जेम्प्टेड। द एपीएमसी यार्ड, मंडी जो बोलते हैं या एपीएमसी यार्ड जो बोलते हैं, वहां पे मार्केट फीस होता है, लाइसेंस फीस होता है, या वहां पे रखने के लिए कुछ चार्जेस लेते हैं, ऑल ऑफ दैट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड। लेकिन वहां पे जो लोग बेचते हैं, दुकान खरीदते हैं भाड़े पे, दैट विल बी टैक्सेबल। लेकिन एपीएमसी का जो बाइंग एंड सेलिंग एक्टिविटी के लिए जो आप आ रहे हो, दैट विल बी एग्जेम्प्टेड। ठीक है? सो एपीएमसी में आपको चिट्ठी दिया जाता है कि आपके कितने गुड्स हैं, कितने केजी के गुड्स है, उतना आपको पे करना है, दैट विल बी एग्जेम्प्टेड। और वहां पे क्या होता है, बेचने के लिए कमीशन एजेंट होते हैं, और देयर कमीशन एजेंट जो कमीशन लेता है बायर और सेलर को कनेक्ट करने के लिए, उसका सर्विस ऑल्सो इज एग्जेम्प्ट। So commission agent, what does he do? He finds the seller or purchaser of agriculture produce. His commission is also exempted. ठीक है? Then loading and unloading or packing or storing of agriculture produce or rice is also exempted. And transportation of agriculture produce by road, rail or vessel is also exempted. And then when we said here ki not only plants, rearing of live forms of animals are also exempted, which means it includes pisciculture, matlab breeding of fish, sericulture, rearing of silkworms, and floriculture, cultivation of ornamental flowers. This is also exempted. So these are all the categories which is exempted. What is taxable? Any process which alters the essential characteristic of the agriculture produce. पोटैटो है, एग्जेम्प्टेड है। पोटैटो से पोटैटो चिप्स बना दिया आपने, टैक्सेबल। टोमेटो था, टोमेटो से टोमेटो सॉस बना दिया, टैक्सेबल। प्रोसेस विच मेक्स द एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस मार्केटेबल इन रिटेल मार्केट। पाइनएप्पल है, पाइनएप्पल तक तो एग्जेम्प्टेड है। पाइनएप्पल को काट के, आपने शक्कर डाल के पाइनएप्पल के टिन में बना दिया, तो ड्राइंग और टिनिंग ऑफ पाइनएप्पल इज सेकेंडरी मार्केट, इट इज टैक्स। ठीक है? एटलीस्ट विद दिस एग्जांपल्स यू नो कि क्या टैक्सेबल है और क्या एग्जेम्प्टेड है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, स्मॉल सर्विसेज इन रिलेशन टू एग्रीकल्चर इज एग्जेम्प्टेड। वन इज एग्रीकल्चर एक्सटेंशन सर्विसेज, विच इज एनी काइंड ऑफ ट्रेनिंग्स, मेलास, किसान क्लब्स, या फिर एप्लीकेशन ऑफ साइंटिफिक नॉलेज टू एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस जो आप देते हो, दिस ऑल फॉर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द फार्मर्स, दैट इज ऑल्सो एग्जेम्प्टेड। आर्टिफिशियल इंसेमिनेशन, you know what is artificial insemination? They say गाय को you have to make some cultivation, you need some more thing, तो आप artificial insemination करते हो, वो हर एनिमल के लिए exempted हो जाएगा apart from horses. Clear? That is all on agricultural services. जो इंजेक्शन देके पैदा करते हैं, क्रॉस इंसेमिनेशन, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज इंसेमिनेशन. This is what we had read. इसमें कुछ नहीं है, anything specific I will tell you. All of this, such a theoretical part, we have understood in such a simple manner. Now, agriculture produce means any produce out of cultivation of plants and renting of all life forms of animals, except rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products on which either no further processing are done or processing is done, is usually done by a cultivator and producer, which does not alter the essential character but makes it marketable for primary market. That is the definition of agriculture produce. So what will that mean? फ्रूट्स इज एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. अगर उसको ड्राई कर दिया, प्रोसेस कर दिया, इट्स अ नॉन एग्रीकल्चर. पाइनएप्पल एग्रीकल्चर. टिन्ड पाइनएप्पल नॉन. टी लीव्स, चाय की पत्तियां, चाय के आप चाहिए हरे भरे बागान में जो पत्तियां मिलेगी, दैट इज एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. उसको आपको चाय जो हमारी मिलती है काली वाली, उसको क्या करते हैं, उसको क्रश करते हैं, फिर मशीनरी में डाल के सुखाते हैं, फिर अपनी टी मिलती है. तो जब मिल में चला गया तो वो चाय की पत्ती जो हमारे घर में आती है, दैट इज अ सेकेंडरी प्रोड्यूस, नॉन एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस है. कॉफी बीन्स, वो तो होता है हरा वाला और लाल वाला, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ पे जो आता है वो कूट के उसको सुखा के बनाते हैं. सो दैट इज नॉन एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. देन शुगर केन इज एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. जैगरी और शुगर, दैट इज अ नॉन एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. होल पल्स ग्रेन, बड़े बड़े ग्रेन विल बी एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस. उसको काट दिया जाता है, स्प्लिट कर दिया जाता है, दैट इज नॉन एग्रीकल्चर. वैसे ही पैडी इज एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस एंड राइस इज नॉट. ठीक है. Buying from APMC is taxable provided primary form, but selling to APMC is exempted. APMC से आप buy करो, sell करो, दोनों exempted ही है, because APMC is why you are buying. That is your primary produce. Then you will do some activity with that, because APMC is not a factory, it is a marketplace. So there, if you buy, it is still exempted. Green tea ka I've told, sugarcane to jaggery is also changing. Pulses is also changing. So there is a video. I don't know if we have sufficient time. We are in 4:20. This video link, I will do one thing. I will share it on the group so that people who are interested can have a look at this, so that you'll have a clarity on the question of rice and the paddy. राइस इज एग्जेम्प्टेड क्योंकि उसको एग्जेम्पशन दिया गया है, बट आई एम सेइंग इट इज नॉट अ प्राइमरीली एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोड्यूस. क्या educational services? Next exemption is in terms of educational services. ठीक है, जस्ट गिव मी 1 more minute. Yeah, next is on educational services. Okay. Educational services. हर जगह we are seeing that services provided by the entity is exempted. Okay, educational services, services provided, but ओके, एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज जब स्कूल या कॉलेज किसी को सर्विस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, दैट इज एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज. सो सर्विसेज प्रोवाइडेड बाय एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन, जो एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन हम सबको दे रही है और हम फीस पे कर रहे हैं उनको, दैट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. तो किसको प्रोवाइड कर रही है सर्विसेज? सर्विसेज टू इट्स स्टूडेंट्स, सर्विसेज टू इट्स फैकल्टी एंड स्टाफ के लिए जो भी स्कूल प्रोवाइड कर रही है, दैट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. And any conduct of entrance examination against the entrance fees, that is also exempted. ठीक है? So when they are providing educational institution, they are providing to students, faculty and staff, it's exempted. And conduct of entrance examination against entrance fees, that is also exempted. Now, any services received by education institution. Till now, we said that when we are providing any services to an agriculturist, services provided to a charitable organization, that will be taxable. लेकिन यहाँ पे exemption मिलेगा. क्या होगा वो? That any kind of transportation of students, faculty and staff of the eligible educational institution. ठीक है? स्कूल में जाने के लिए बच्चों को बस की चाहिए. जो बस की फीस है, जो बस वाला करेक्ट करेगा, वो जीएसटी चार्ज नहीं करेगा, बिकॉज द एग्जेम्पशन इज फॉर हिम ऑल्सो. सर्विसेज फॉर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स, फैकल्टी और स्टाफ. देन एनी केटरिंग सर्विसेज, खाना चाहिए बच्चों को खाना आप मंगवाते हो और बच्चों को वहां पे देते हो, तब उसके ऊपर भी जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा. दिस इज मोर पॉपुलर इन टर्म्स ऑफ मिड डे मील स्कीम. जब वेरियस स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया, मिड डे मील स्कीम शुरू कर दिया. उसके लिए वो केटरिंग वालों को बोलते कि खाना बना के दो, वो खाना बना के देंगे लेकिन जीएसटी चार्ज नहीं करेंगे. ठीक है? देन सिक्योरिटी एंड क्लीनिंग और हाउसकीपिंग सर्विसेज, क्योंकि क्लीनलीनेस चाहिए, हाउसकीपिंग चाहिए, सिक्योरिटी चाहिए, तो ये तीनों भी एग्जेम्प्टेड होंगे. क्या लेवल पर? प्री स्कूल या हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल पर. 10th या 12th स्टैंडर्ड जो है, जो हर स्टेट में जो हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल डिफाइन किया गया है, प्री स्कूल से लेके हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल तक ये एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा. देन सर्विसेज रिलेटिंग टू एडमिशन to such institution, admission fees, entrance fees वगैरह लेते हैं, that is exempted for all educational institutions. Pre primary, primary, preschool, higher secondary school, colleges, universities, सबको मिलेगा. And supply of online educational journals or periodicals to anybody who is beyond higher secondary school. मतलब जब आपके कॉलेज में कॉलेज वालों ने एजुकेशनल जर्नल ऑनलाइन सब्सक्राइब किया गया है, उसको सब्सक्राइबर वालों जीएसटी चार्ज करेंगे, लेकिन उनको एग्जेम्पशन दे दिया गया है कि आप अगर किसी स्कूल बियॉन्ड स्कूल प्रोवाइड करते हो, विच इज बियॉन्ड हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल, तो फिर आपको जीएसटी चार्ज नहीं करनी चाहिए. ठीक है. व्हाट एग्जेम्पशन? देयर इज सो मच फीस फॉर स्कूल्स दीज डेज. हाँ, बस वो भी अभी कमर्शियलाइज हो गया है, तो फिर उसके ऊपर जीएसटी क्यों नहीं चलना चाहिए? क्योंकि आप स्कूल के लिए फीस इतना पे कर रहे हो, तो फिर जीएसटी भी पे करो ना. वो भी दिन काफी दूर नहीं है कि आप स्कूल फीस पे करो लेकिन जीएसटी पे नहीं कर रहे हो. लकीली ये एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज अभी तक एग्जेम्प्टेड है, लेकिन जब ये हट जाएगा तब आपको फीस के ऊपर भी जीएसटी पे करना पड़ेगा. Got it? Now we'll come back to the slide at the end so that we'll get a summary of it. So, educational services provided for conduct of degree courses by colleges, universities, or institution is exempted because these courses lead to grant of first definition पढ़ लेंगे, then we'll come to it. Educational services means, okay, educational institution means any institution providing services by way of preschool education एंड एजुकेशन अप टू हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल. क्योंकि एग्जेम्पशन किसको मिल रहा है? एग्जेम्पशन मिल रहा है सिर्फ एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन को. अब एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन कौन है? एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन मीन्स एन इंस्टीट्यूशन हु इज प्रोवाइडिंग सर्विसेज बाय वे ऑफ प्री स्कूल एजुकेशन एंड एजुकेशन अप टू हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल, then who are providing education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification which is recognized by any law for the time being in force. फर्स्ट तो प्री स्कूल है, स्कूल तक ठीक है. बियॉन्ड स्कूल जो भी आप कर रहे हो उसके लिए आपको कुछ क्वालिफिकेशन मिलना चाहिए, एंड दैट क्वालिफिकेशन शुड बी रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बाय द लॉ. ऐसा नहीं कि आपको कुछ सर्टिफिकेट दे दिया गया, पार्टिसिपेशन सर्टिफिकेट, दैट इज नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बाय लॉ. आपको डिग्री मिलेगा, आपको सीए का क्वालिफिकेशन मिलेगा, समथिंग लाइक दैट. इफ यू आर गेटिंग, देन इट इज अ क्वालिफिकेशन रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बाय लॉ. थर्ड इज एजुकेशन एज अ पार्ट ऑफ एन अप्रूव्ड वोकेशनल एजुकेशन कोर्स, जो पढ़ नहीं सकते काफी. ठीक है. जो काफी पढ़ नहीं सकते बट दे आर गुड इन सम स्किल्स, उनको वोकेशनल एजुकेशन कोर्स में डाला गया. उसका मतलब भी दिया गया है. अप्रूव्ड वोकेशनल एजुकेशन कोर्स मींस अ कोर्स विच इज रन बाय एन इंडस्ट्रियल ट्रेनिंग इंस्टीट्यूट, आईटीआई जो फेमसली कहते हैं, या फिर आईटीसी, Industrial Training Center, which is affiliated to National Council for Vocational Training or State Council for Vocational Training, or offering courses in designated trades, which is notified under the Apprenticeship Act. एक Apprenticeship Act है, उसके अंदर अगर आपका कुछ भी कोर्स रिकॉग्नाइज्ड है, आईटीआई और आईटीसी का तो रिकॉग्नाइज है, लेकिन इसके अलावा दूसरों का भी किसी का अगर रिकॉग्निशन चाहिए, so you have to get it affiliated through the Apprenticeship Act, through this National Council for Vocational Training, or if you're providing any modular employable skill course, then which is approved again by NCVET and run by a person registered with the Director General of Training, tab bhi it will be exempted. So schools, colleges and approved vocational education course will be exempted. ICAI, ICSI, ICMI is all education as a part of a curriculum for obtaining qualification. आपको qualification मिलेगा ना, recognized by law, so they are also exempted. So admission to institution, how will it be considered as services received by the educational institution? So that's why they're given a special category for that, saying that people may argue that where is the education there? That's why they've said that conduct of entrance examination against entrance fees is also exempted. Admission will all become part of education, because why are you taking admission? You are taking admission. Okay, you're taking admission for the education only. That's way. Okay, so we understood the definition. Now, what all will be exempted? Conduct of degree courses by colleges, universities, or institution. Yes, it is exempted. Training given by private coaching. कि आप जाते हो ना, जैसे यशस और दूसरे दूसरे centers, which I don't want to take the name, those are all not recognized by law, so that will be exempted. So transportation service received by educational institution is exempted. Yes, it is exempted. Then third is education as a part of a prescribed particular for obtaining a qualification recognized by law of a foreign country. That is also not taxable, because only a course recognized by an Indian law is covered. Okay. Now you have a curriculum जिसमें आपको you will get a BCom degree and along with it you will get a foreign degree. So it will be taxable, because foreign degree recognized by law means the recognized by the Indian law. अगर आपको foreign की degree मिल रही है, then it is not exempted. So this is to be very well kept in mind, saying that a degree which is recognized by Indian law is only exempted. ठीक है. So this is the definition of educational service, vocational education service. Types of educational institution which will exempted is services provided to educational institution. जो प्री स्कूल एजुकेशन एंड एजुकेशन अप टू हायर सेकेंडरी, उसको क्या मिलेगा? सेम लाइक द फर्स्ट चार्ट विच आई हैव डन अ बाइफिकेशन इज एक्सप्लेन्ड हियर. ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, केटरिंग, सिक्योरिटी, सर्विस रिलेटेड टू एडमिशन. बट फॉर अ एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन प्रोवाइडिंग एजुकेशन एज अ पार्ट ऑफ अ करिकुलम, उसको क्या मिलेगा? सर्विसेज रिलेटेड टू एडमिशन एंड सप्लाई ऑफ ऑनलाइन जर्नल्स. और फॉर अ वोकेशनल कोर्स, फॉर अ वोकेशनल एजुकेशन कोर्स, उसको मिलेगा सर्विस रिलेटिंग टू एडमिशन और कंडक्ट ऑफ एग्जामिनेशन. सिर्फ इसको एक मिलेगा, इसको दो मिलेगा, इसका 4 सर्विसेज पे एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा. entrance examination, which is it's by a authority. So any authority, board or body which is set up by the central government or state government, and they conduct entrance examination. जैसे नीट, कैट, जैसे कुछ स्पेशल आपको किसी कॉलेज में जाएंगे आप, तो आपको एंट्रेंस एग्जामिनेशन लिखना पड़ेगा. सो दैट एंट्रेंस एग्जामिनेशन इज ऑल्सो फॉर एजुकेशनल पर्पसेस, सो दैट इज ऑल्सो exempted. So these are all clarifications which they are giving, because we know that primarily education is exempted, लेकिन anything उसके आसपास that is also exempted. So entrance examination is exempted. Then GST shall not apply on any fees or amount charged by such boards for conduct of such examination. So entrance examination also will be exempted. So if example ICAI conducts a training session for students with regard to tally or SAP or fees, and in turns provide participation fees, it will not be covered. Yeah, ideally it will not be covered because it is not a degree recognized by law. Training given by private coaching center is exempted. नहीं ना, उसमें slide में लिखा है it is taxable. Okay. Then GST is also exempt on input service related to admission to or conduct of examination, जैसे online test देते हैं, result publication, admission card, all of that is part of entry of students, so that is also exempted. But GST is applicable to other services provided by such boards, जैसे वो accreditation वगैरह देते हैं, on that there will be GST. So only admission के ऊपर exempted है. Food services जैसे मेस और कैंटीन है, इफ कैंटीन सर्विस आर प्रोवाइडेड बाय एन एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन टू इट्स स्टूडेंट्स, फैकल्टी एंड स्टाफ, देन इट इज exempted. लेकिन उसी कैंटीन में बाहर वाले भी खाते हैं, देन इट विल बी टैक्सेबल, क्योंकि only canteen services provided to a school to its students, faculty and staff is exempted. Okay. Government exams will be taxable? No, that will also be exempted. But if catering services are provided to preschool and HSC, then it is exempted. Supply of food in Anganwadis and school is all exempted, because Anganwadi is also a type of school itself. Then other services, boarding schools are exempted. Boarding schools are exempted. वहाँ पे education plus stay रहता है, but your primary purpose is for education itself. So even though there is stay, it will still be exempted. Salaries हमने देखा है ना तनुष, it is there in schedule 3, right? So it is a non-taxable supply. Dual qualification, where one is recognized and one is not recognized, so then it will be treated as a mixed supply. और mixed supply होगा तो GST किसके ऊपर लगेगा? On the whole value taxable हो जाएगा. So be careful. I don't know if educational institutions are actually doing it. They are providing some services which is both taxable and exempted, but they treat everything as exempted. But if they're providing foreign accreditation, foreign certification, foreign recognition, and one is Indian recognition, so Indian तो exempted है, लेकिन foreign will become taxable, लेकिन दोनों आपको साथ में provide कर रहे हैं, then it will become mixed supply. और mixed supply है तो highest GST rate लग जाएगा. IIM, if they are providing long-term course, that normal regular course, then it is exempted. But if they are providing short-term course, then it will be taxable. Similarly, any center and state board conducting examination will be exempted. And fees charged for prospective employers. ठीक है, कॉलेज में प्लेसमेंट वगैरह चाहिए और एम्प्लॉयर से आप जो कंपनी आती है From them, you will collect some charges that is taxable. Entrance fees is exempted. Eligibility certificate, transfer certificate, migration certificate, all because वहां पे पढ़े थे, that's why you are getting this. So it will be exempted. Then maritime courses, which is okay, maritime courses which is approved by DG of shipping, that is also exempted. डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ शिपिंग, व्हाट इज डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ शिपिंग? जैसे शिपिंग के लिए होता है, राइट, मरीन टाइम, मैरीटाइम कोर्सेज जो शिपिंग में जिनको सीखना है, उनको देर इज अ डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ शिपिंग, राइट, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ शिपिंग. दैट इज सिमिलर लाइक अपने स्कूल्स में जो बोर्ड होता है, हमारे शिपिंग वालों को एक बोर्ड होता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ शिपिंग. सो ऑल ऑफ दैट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. सर्विस न्यू एग्जेम्पशन एक ऐड हुआ है, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू. सर्विस ऑफ अफिलिएशन, okay, service of affiliation which is provided by the central or state government education boards, जैसे स्टेट बोर्ड या आईसीएससी बोर्ड या सीबीएसई बोर्ड होता है, दे गिव रिकॉग्निशन, गिव अफिलिएशन टू सर्टेन स्कूल्स which is owned and controlled by the central government or state government or union territory local authority, that is exempted. Which means what? Affiliation to government schools are exempted, but if they provide affiliation to private schools, then that is taxable. ठीक है, सो अफिलिएशन टू प्राइवेट स्कूल्स इज टैक्सेबल, सो अफिलिएशन टू गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. ठीक है, सो दैट इज ऑल ऑन टर्म्स ऑफ एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज. एज वी हैड सेड, विल गो टू द फर्स्ट स्लाइड टू अंडरस्टैंड इफ वी आर क्लियर विद दिस. So services by educational institution is taxable, is exempted, and services received by educational institution will also be exempted. क्लियर है यहाँ पे? नाउ दिस स्लाइड इज मेकिंग सेंस. मिलिट्री स्कूल्स और नवोदया स्कूल्स और अफिलिएटेड कैटेगरी, हाँ, उनका सब अफिलिएशन होता है, सो दैट अफिलिएशन विल बी एग्जेप्टेड. Yes, this is very easy, correct Priyanshi, but the list is too long. ठीक है, as long as it is easy, it's good. Only that the chapters are lengthy, the exemptions are lengthy, but if we understand, that will be fine. Chapter 1 का content, I will share it with you, Priya. सिंपल हाउ टू रिमेम्बर सोनिया, जस्ट रीड इट लाइक अ स्टोरी. आप जैसे स्कूल जाते हो, स्कूल में क्या करते हो, सो दीज आर द प्राइमरी थिंग्स. सो यू थिंक ऑफ द इंडस्ट्री, थिंक यू आर रनिंग अ स्कूल, आपको कौन सा एग्जामेशन मिलेगा, सो यू थिंक लाइक दैट, देन यू विल गेट इट. अदरवाइज इट इज, इफ यू ट्राई टू मग अप और बाय हार्ट, इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. Shubhankar, will you continue with the session now?
Sir, please give the access to start my video. The video is disabled.
Yeah, we'll just ask the admin IT person to do it.
Okay. Okay, sir. Let me just conclude it. Thank you so much, Deepak sir. Thank you so much, Deepak sir, for this valuable session on the chapter Exemption from GST. This session, this chapter is a very important chapter from the examination point of view, since some of the entries of exemption are covered under the compulsory option, under the compulsory under the compulsory question which is asked in the exam. And I hope all the students might have understood the entries well. Since this is a very one of the very important chapter and have the good weightage in the exams, so I would request you to please give the due importance and the due attention on this chapter. Moreover, I would like to request all the students to share your valuable feedback about the classes, about your experience related to the classes in the feedback form given to you. And to boost up your preparation, to boost the ICAI and the Board of Studies have given the ample of resources, including MTP booklet, case scenario, Saransh, updated study material for your better preparation and better strategies in the exams. So at the end, I would like to say thanks to Deepak sir and to all the students for attending this session and being there for the chapter. So thank you so much, sir. Sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
If any students want to ask something or have any suggestion to give, he or she can give in the chat box also. Okay, sir. Let's end this meeting.